Time is the answer to all things mysterious. It's an actual thing collaborating with the material of dark matter space that expands the universal boundary. Time is a blanket wrapped around everything. Our universe and everything in it was created in time. We are immersed in it. It is the primary force behind the expansion of the universe. It orbits the fabric of space and pervades it, creating time waves, thus causing continuous expansion. Without time, we would cease to exist. We must understand time as it relates to creation before we can understand the whole of reality that include mysterious things like predestination, free will, dreams, visions, and other forms of prophetic knowings. So, in theory only, and with God's leave, let's step across the great divide and stand beside God to see what actually happened. Time as we acquired it began when God split our DNA-designed time particle into two halves, and they moved away from each other, thus creating two identical universes within our atomic home. One supports the other. We exist in two places at the same time. A twin universe equals a twin Earth. What happens in one happens in the other, just as in the electron's fractionalized twin example. If possible to view the two universes in concert, they would consolidate into one particle in the view of the onlooker. Two identical universes sharing space will appear as one universe to the human observer. That conclusion is rooted in quantum physics. The invisible twin was created at the precise moment when the time particle split and expanded dark matter space. An invisible umbilical cord by any description, a tunnel, wormhole, or portal keeps both of them connected to the higher dimension point of origin. As previously established, time coexisted in another dimension with dark matter space. Time propelled it outward, creating space as we know it, and followed it, exciting dark energy. Time hastily completed one full orbit and dutifully created the universal boundary. The twin universe cannot leave the material in which they've been created, that being our home. We can call the universal twins traversing time bands because of how they interact with each other. Bands stretch their respective boundary with consistent spinning that results in expansion of time and boundary. We can envision it as a string of material pervading all of creation and orbiting around and in expelled matter, holding the universe together. It matters not which is band 1 or 2 because they are identical. Numerical identification is for the purpose of illustration only. The time particle's DNA duplicates exact circumstances in both houses of the universe. They are identical bands of time and space. Time ignited the Big Bang. It originally moved in opposite direction at the same immeasurable split-second speed, stimulating dark energy movement and stretched dark matter space outward. It happened fast, expanding like air in the balloon at an incredible speed. We should not apply our understanding of speed to the unknowns of the universe where physics break down. In Lawrence Krauss's book, he mentions that for a very short period of time, so small it cannot be measured, an electron, due to the uncertainty principle, can appear to be moving faster than the speed of light. Another way to interpret this is that it's moving back in time. From God's vantage point, everything that exists started and ended at such speed that you and I would think it began and ended at the same exact moment. It was over in a flash. If we had stood next to him when the project was launched, we would have seen all of human history unfold in one split second. Every human experience, every choice, every tear, every failure, and every success and joy would have played like a movie on big screen. Initially expanded with maximum force velocity to the point of resistance, the bands slightly relaxed. They moved in curved directions determined by the perfect amount of force generated by the initial force at separation. Imagine two bands stretched out in a straight line. Band 1 is positioned on the left. It expanded rapidly and curved in a clockwise direction. Band 2 expanded in an opposite counterclockwise motion and intersected with Band 1. Both curved and spiraled to complete one orbit and returned to point of origin. From there, it continued with a new vortex orbit. The boundary bulged outward, north, south, east, and west. The bands continued to spiral orbit after orbit, all the while expanding space boundary by generating invisible waves within the framework of dark matter space in each band. The first three orbits in the dual universe demonstrate how they intersect. Time bands swirl in opposite directions in close proximity. Space is quantum scale. Dimensions between bands are tiny. Orbits are tight and swing in at every potential point of contact to avoid collision with itself. Energy ripples generated by the vortex push dark matter space outward, expanding the band in each one to accommodate more time. The bands move independently and float within limitation of external energies, thereby intersecting billions of times in microseconds. Time bleeds into time. The two bands will consolidate into one because of God's plan for the temporal home of humanity. Energy ripples exert pressure against the universal wall of each band, forcing dark matter to expand further. The swift, powerful, swirling vortex motion is what generates an undetectable wave of dark energy that stretches the dark matter. Example: a rock is thrown into water. The impact generates ripples in the water that move away from the point of contact. The ripples eventually lose energy and cease unless one keeps tossing rocks into the water to generate more ripples. Incoming tidal waves serve as a grander example. Waves crash the shoreline and extend the boundary. Likewise, the energy force generated by swirling time usurps gravity and crashes the outer boundary of dark matter. Gravity was created in time and denser than time itself in our time band. If time relaxed and stopped spiraling at immeasurable speed, it would cease to create ripples and time would stand still. Gravity's DNA would assume divinely appointed control and essentially eat its parent's predecessor and pull our universe back upon itself. The return to our original state can only happen if time bands return to ground rest and time runs out of room. Continued expansion is triggered by internal pressure exerted from the time bands pushing against the universal boundary, thereby making room for more time band orbits and continued intersections of time. Time bands run parallel and can cross each other at near-miss distance that does not disturb the trajectory of either one. The result is stable, consistent expansion of each universe. Order was arranged out of chaos. Time as a thing propelled a high-energy force to stretch and expand the universe for the sake of survival. Expansion is speeding up as the bands orbit. It pulls planets, solar systems, and all things universal further away from each other. Accelerated speed indicates that time bands are generating more ripples in dark matter space. That means the point of origin gets further and further away from the present. A pessimist might say that the past is slipping away faster than ever. An optimist might say that tomorrow will be here before you know it. We aren't aware of external increase in time speed because it's relative. We live within the time band, but are only aware of our material world, which is governed by a set of internal laws of physics. When band 1 intersects with band 2, it will do so at a different point in time, creating multiple time zone crossings. The bands are wound tight and so close to each other that the human eye would only see one of them. They cross each other at points that otherwise would result in a collision. Both bands are real timelines, and those living at every point are very real with a past, present, and future. While one loop contains the present, one contains the future, and another the past. Each moment is as real as the other. The B theory of time is the name given to one position regarding philosophy of time. B theory students argue that the flow of time is an illusion, that the past, present, and future are equally real, and that time is tenseless. I don't know how they came to that conclusion, but it's true according to the time particle theory. It is always the present for you right now, although you are alive in the past and future. It is the present for your past person. It is the present for your future self. Example, you are reviewing this video series. Your future self has already reviewed it in his or her past. Your past self will do it in his or her future. Each point in time is real. It is all you at various stages of time band stretching. You are in 3 different time zones at the same time. As difficult as it may be to process, we are reminded of the threefold nature of the electron and the time particle. We are also reminded of the triune God 3 in 1. Time is God's memory book. It keeps us living each moment before Him. It records and preserves all things. Hebrews 4 verse 23 says in part, "Nothing in all creation is hidden from God's sight." He sees all, past, present, and future. There is no end to what He knows. Every thought and every detail of our lives serve as a living testimony of everything we've ever done, said, and everything we've tried to hide. Our secrets lay bare before God, who can review every detail at any given moment in time. Imagine replaying a favorite movie and watching it over and over. That's disturbing on a personal level, but God's promised not to remember our sins once we accept Christ. It's a divine choice to forget. He chooses to remember that we believed His testimony about Jesus. We discover further support for timeless time in the Holy Bible. Psalm 139 verse 4 says, "Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely." Isaiah 46 verse 10 says, "I make known the end from the beginning, from ancient times, what is still to come. I say, my purpose will stand, and I will do all that I please." The revelation of past, present, and future living encourages a secondary rendering of scriptural context. We have to read it with new understanding in context of the time particle. Luke 20, verse 38 says, "For He is not the God of the dead, but of the living, for all live to Him." Ecclesiastes 1, verses 9-10 says, "What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which one can say, 'Look, this is something new. It was here already, long ago. It was here before our time.'" The prophet goes on to say in Ecclesiastes 3 verse 15, "There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. Whatever is has already been, and what will be has been before, and God will call the past to account." God sees us as alive in the past, present, and future. Nothing can escape close, holy scrutiny. When He looks at us in our present timeline, we are alive. When He looks at us in the past, we are alive. When He looks at us in the future, we are alive. We can't hide from God's eye, past, present, or future. Time bears witness for or against us. And now that we're familiar with the structure of the time particle, we can move on to more fun things like, is it predestination or free will? How does prayer work, and does it really make a difference? Can we change the future? Can we change the past? The next episode is an exciting adventure through a beautiful maze of time entanglement. Answers long sought are no longer elusive, so buckle up for the ride.